No, I was in the editing room for Dine and Dash yesterday, and I realized something. I may be good, I may not be good. It doesn't matter. My editor makes me look good.
How did it look?
It looks good. It looks really good. I mean, listen, it's totally got everything I asked for, which I love. It's that Ridley Scott feel. Just to go over the process, you know, we were having a conversation about how it's very. I loved the first cut, but it was a little too inside baseball for me at certain points. So what we did was we added some more of the comedy segments and stuff, and it now works really well. I think.
Right.
I think that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. I mean, Kate Walsh is hilarious.
Yes.
You know, I will say this: after the shoot, I was like, Joe and Lucy did such a good job, but Joe and Lucy, it seemed like at points, were carrying a lot. Joe Carnahan, Lucy Lawless. They were carrying a lot of the show on their back at points, it seemed. So I'm like, oh, man, how are we going to get enough of Kate? How are we going to get enough of Common? How are we going to get enough of Dermot? And I'm sitting here yesterday watching this, and there were parts where I'm like, we need more Dermot, we need more Dermot. But Kate, this is what it comes down to, and this is the great thing about doing this talk show, Dine and Dash, and doing this show is, when you're really talented, even if you only speak 3 or 4 times, if you're intellectual, if you're funny, odds are it's going to be great. Right. And those are the only 3 or 4 takes we need.
Amazing.
Right?
That's true.
That's what's great. Kate Walsh was so good when she did tell stories. And she only told like 4 or 5 stories without being interrupted or people talking to her or whatever. But the 4 or 5 stories she told are so good. That, like, you didn't care. You're like, this is great. Thank God she was a part of this. And Common.
And she's hilarious.
Amazing.
Common, he's the lowest speaking of the group. He's the softest voice of the group. But when Common talks, because his voice is so different than Joe's and Lucy's and Kate's and mine, you can't help but there's a shift in the show, and you're listening, like, in a different way than you were listening before, because Common's now all, like, professor-like now.
Right.
So, I mean, it's really cool. It's a cool process, but what I realized is you don't see my bald spot. I should have dyed my hair. But, I mean, it's stuff like, you know, I realized I look way better than I should. And that's because of your directors and your editors. And, you know, so I kind of feel like acting, even though that's something I do and you do, is so bullshit.
Yeah.